Well, folks, we've got something a little bit different today, and this is going to be potentially a pilot of sorts. If it's something that you would like to see again, I would definitely be interested in doing it because it's something that I've gotten, I wouldn't say into recently, but I've tried it at least a couple of times. I've only ever entered 2 raffles myself. I entered my first one ever last year. I actually created my own raffle before ever entering one myself, and of course some of you will remember back in late 2022 I did the PS5 giveaway, or a raffle I should say, not a giveaway. And the winner was in the States. I actually ended up buying the winner a better PS5 than the one that I was giving away. I was doing the raffle for a digital one. I ended up buying them the disc edition because it was simpler than shipping over mine, and it was a great result. Then I tried a second one, which didn't go as well. It was for a classic motorcycle, which I owned, of course, an MV Agusta at the time. Didn't surprise me, it didn't have a huge amount of interest. But then I was thinking the other day, why do people have this interest in, at least those who do have interest in it, watching stuff like gambling streams, like XQC and various other creators? Why do people do that? Why is it so successful? And then it suddenly clicked. Well, of course it's successful, for the same reason why game shows are, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or Tipping Point, or The Cube, or whatever else. It's because people love the thrill of the chase. They love the idea of someone winning it all or losing it all and seeing the ups and the downs. It's kind of like the OG version of React channels in a certain sense. And you get to watch these people potentially have like the biggest win ever, or maybe not, and it could have an association with a wide variety of skills, be it general knowledge or some physical thing. But here's the crucial thing. People enjoy it because you're not actually risking your own money or your own time. You're just watching somebody else do it, and then you have the fun of that. So that makes sense if you recontextualize that with the concept of gambling. So then I thought, well, hang on then. I've tried doing raffles a couple of times on the channel, and I'll probably do them again at some point, but for many people, they're not in the financial position to do that, and that's totally fine. So I wanted to use this video for 2 things. One, I'm going to enter a raffle on this video. It's not a stream, of course, because I'll release this after the fact, but I wanted to do a raffle myself. But crucially, I wanted to talk about some advice I have for people who might be thinking about entering a raffle, and just 4 general points that I believe are good practice when it comes to giving yourself the best chances, but also keeping this, which could easily become a habit, much like gambling, under control. The first piece of advice is something that you're going to see me doing tonight. Now, this particular company that I'll probably have on screen in the background is called Dream Car Giveaways. I have no affiliation to them whatsoever. They don't know who I am. No giveaway companies know who I am, and if I do ever have any kind of business association with them, you would know. So, with that out of the way, this one is ending in just over an hour. As you can see, it's a Mazda RX7. Awesome car. We're going to get to that in a second though, because that's actually one of the 4 pieces of advice that I have. See, the only 2 raffles that I've ever entered were, the first one was a Ferrari FF, which is my dream car, so of course I was going to enter that. The second one was a couple of weeks ago, and it was for one of my favourite hot hatches. I haven't driven one yet, and I hope it doesn't disappoint me, but it was the Renault Megane R26, and it was also in yellow, which is my dream colour for it. Of course I didn't win either of them, as many people, the majority of people, won't win. And also that gets back to my points that I wanted to get into. So the first piece of advice that I have is only buy 1 ticket. And that's a piece of advice which you could easily have counter-arguments to. The reason though why I say you should only buy 1 ticket is actually mathematical. Because if you think of it this way, if you have, say, 10,000 people entering, this raffle, for example, as you can see, has 12,000 tickets, and 10,300 have already sold. So, with that in mind, if you look at it, without your heart, just use your head and think of it from a mathematical perspective, what amount of tickets gives you the biggest statistical leap in odds than any other? Well, I would argue there are really only 2. Either if you buy all of the tickets, which of course guarantees a victory, which is why you're not allowed to do that, but secondly, buying 1. Because if you think about it, even buying all of the tickets doesn't give you statistically an improvement in chances as much as going from buying none to buying 1. Because you've literally just gone from having absolutely no chance to now 1 in this case, 1 in 12,000. That is an astronomical increase in odds, and I'm no mathematician, but I'm pretty sure you actually can't really quantify that kind of improvement because you can't times by 0. So to go from no entries to 1 is a massive increase in odds. So that's my first piece of advice. Obviously, the benefit to that as well is that you don't spend as much money, so you don't potentially lose as much money. The second piece of advice that I would give, this one seems to run counter to everything that you would assume, but the second piece of advice that I actually have pertains to this car on screen. See, this is one of my favorite JDM cars, which is why it caught my eye. It's a Mazda RX7, 1999. It's modified to, how much is it? 350 horsepower, so it's a relatively modest tune. It's got 86,000 miles on the clock, which isn't that great, but it's not too high. Obviously, it's harder and harder to find one these days with super low mileage. And even if you did find one, it would probably be in a private collection or something. But this brings me to my point. See, would I love an RX7? Of course I would. But this RX7, as a prime example, has apparently been through the ringer here in competitions with Dream Car giveaways a couple of times, because each time somebody wins, they keep choosing the cash instead. Now, I wasn't actually able to find here on screen what the cash alternative is. Maybe somebody else could find it, but I couldn't find what the alternative was. I would assume, being an RX7, the cash alternative is probably something like £30,000. It's got to be something like that, especially for a modified one. So, with that in mind, I could totally understand why people would choose that. And that also is the point that I'm getting at. See, if you're going to enter one of these competitions, ironically, the thing which makes you want to enter them the most is the thing that's working the most against you. And that is that you want the vehicle. See, either you need to enter a competition where there is absolutely no question that you want the vehicle, such as for me with the Ferrari FF, which I would have absolutely gone for, or the Renault Megane R26, which I would have absolutely gone for two different reasons. One, where else would I ever get the chance to get a Ferrari FF potentially ever again? You know, I don't know how well YouTube's going to do. And on the other hand, well, the Mazda, or not the Mazda, the Renault, I should say, the Megane R26 is not the car which has a high cash alternative. It's like $4,500 cash. So of course I'd choose the car. Aside from that though, if you look at something like this, or maybe something like a motorhome or a Range Rover, something like 50, 60, 70, 100 grand, well, now you've got to really think of a couple of things. You've got to think of the maintenance. You've got to think of running the vehicle, insuring it. You've got to think how much use are you going to get out of it? Can you really justify owning that car? Now, you've got a couple of options there, a couple of bits of advice that I would give as well. The first thing is, I would actually, counter to what you would think, I would recommend entering raffles where you actually don't want the car. So for me, for example, something like a caravan or a motorhome or a Volkswagen camper, I have zero interest in winning one of those, but they're worth a lot, which means that the cash alternative is pretty damn good. Now, there are two benefits to that. Number one, it means that going for the cash alternative will be a much easier choice and you'll come off really well. Second thing is, though, it means that if you're not as invested in the vehicle, you won't be as disappointed if you lose. And let's be honest, chances are you probably will. The majority of people who enter this, doubtless including myself, will not win the car. So if you choose a vehicle where you really want it so badly, like for me with the Ferrari FF, of course I was more disappointed. The thing that disappointed me the most was actually that the person who did win, some old guy, chose the cash instead. And it's like, I get it, yeah, but still, come on, man. So that is another piece of advice that I would give as well. If you're going to enter these with any kind of regularity, try to go for the vehicles which you don't want as much, because it means you won't be as disappointed, and it will also be easier for you to choose the cash, which chances are will probably be of more benefit to you anyway. The second thing is, though, and this is one which a lot of people don't talk about, all of these competitions, of course, will do reasonably well. You know, the companies at this point, at least the ones that are well reviewed, they tend to choose vehicles that are popular, and proven. But if you can try and find the vehicles, let's say, for example, on Best of the Best as a prime one, if you choose a vehicle from Best of the Best that you think is less likely to have people wanting it, and there are definitely a mix of vehicles that are way higher on the spectrum for wanting them and way lower, compare like an electric Kia to a Lamborghini Urus or something like that, going for the ones which are less desirable could actually give you a better chance, because not as many people will be wanting it, not as many people will be entering. So that is another reason why I'd recommend actually trying to enter for vehicles that you're not as interested in. That does obviously raise the valid point of why not just enter a cash raffle then? And here in the UK, the real requirement for entering a raffle is just that you have to have like a quiz-based element. So for example, here at Dream Car Giveaways, I've already checked theirs. You just have to answer a simple question. With the raffles that I did, you have to answer a question as well. That's how Raffle does it, the company that I use to host it. And then with others, like Best of the Best, which is the one I was going to do first, I'm actually not as much of a fan of their method. I like a completely impartial, totally random ticket generator, basically, because then it's totally fair, it's not based on skill. The way Best of the Best does it, BOTB, is they actually do spot the ball. So they delete the football out of an image of a couple of footballers like heading a ball or kicking it, and they're both looking at where the ball would be, and you have to literally down to the pixel pick where the ball would be. To me, I don't like that as much. It's fun, sure, but it means that it's more of a skill-based thing. There is no way near as much of an element of luck, and I don't like that quite as much. I get why they do it, but to me I prefer this method and the method that I've used, which is just a simple question. With that to one side, that's more of a personal preference thing, but to me, if you combine these things that I've said, it gives you a chance of winning. But it also means that, say for this one, for example, £4 for the ticket is fairly steep compared to some. There are plenty of competitions that you can enter for like 99p, and most of the ones that I would enter probably would be. At that point, you could easily trick yourself into thinking, well, for 99p, I could buy 10 tickets. That's only 10 quid. Sure, it does technically give you a 10 times better chance, but I think most of us know that in practice, it doesn't quite feel like it works out that way. So statistically, like I said earlier on, buying that first ticket is the biggest improvement in odds you're ever going to have. You'll never have another one as big as that, because none of them allow you to enter, even the majority of the tickets if you could afford it anyway, which is good. They shouldn't allow that. So the final bit of advice I would give, and this is actually something which prevented me from choosing a different company to do one of these with, is research the company. Look at, for example, here in the UK at least, the Trustpilot reviews, or whatever aggregator website or testimonials you want to use. So these guys have a very good score, 4.6 out of 5. The fact that they advertise the Trustpilot on their website is always a good sign. Right there on the top banner, you can click on it and see that their 1-star reviews, which is always the one you want to look out for, is less than 1% of the total people. That's great. Another company I was thinking about entering with, they had something like 14-15%. And even though their overall score was still relatively high, those ones looked really bad. So the people, for example, noted that they had a ton of scam calls happening. So clearly there was some kind of data breach from the company, or at the very least, they're sharing your phone number and stuff with companies that they shouldn't be. I'm sure that happens with a bunch of these, unfortunately, but at least if you can avoid that kind of thing, you're going to make it a lot better off for yourself. That company as well, if you check out the Trustpilot, I'm not going to name any names, but that particular company, somebody made the accusation in the reviews that they were actually raffling off cars that had like crash damage, or that were stolen and recovered. If you're selling a vehicle like that, that's fine, as long as you declare it. In a raffle though, I'm not so sure about that. It's dodgy at best, and if you don't say that, that's even worse. And this person claims, and obviously it's only their claim, but the person claims that their husband works in the motor trade and was actually offered to buy some of the vehicles at trade price before they ended up in raffles, and that they were crash damaged or stolen or whatever. So that's not this company. Obviously I wouldn't even be on the page if it was, but the point that I'm making is be careful. Check out the companies, research them before time. And for this particular one, I'll probably end my ramblings there, but I would like to know a couple of things in particular. Number one, the most important thing, would you like me to do more of these? Because obviously it allows those of you who do like, winning cars and raffles and that kind of stuff, you get to watch the fun of it, but without risking your own money, because it's me risking it. So would you like to see more of these every so often? Or, as an alternate question, have you ever entered one? And I'd love to know if any of you have ever won a raffle. Obviously, at least one of you has, because I did the raffle on the channel. But I mean, in general, like other stuff, have you ever won a car? And obviously, it doesn't have to be a car, but there's like motorbike raffles, holidays, cash, all different kinds of things. For me, the cars I just find more interesting. There's more of a thrill to it. Like, oh, should I keep the car? Should I keep the cash? In the case of this one, as much as I'd love the RX7, I only have a certain amount of space, and I feel like, let's say it is a 30 grand cash alternative, I could do more with the money than I could with the car. As lovely as the car is, I could do a lot with £30,000. For example, at the moment, on the members section of the channel, one of the recent members videos that I did is I'm starting a project on Abe, my Lincoln. I'm planning to drop a Toyota V8 into it from a Lexus 1UZ. Well, having funds would obviously make that project a lot easier, and as cool as it would be to have an RX7, I'd much rather get my own Lincoln Continental project done, and of course that amount of cash would make it so much easier. So I'm going to fast forward in time with an edit to when this is, closer to the end, and I would always recommend trying to find a company, and these guys do it, wherein you can like log into Facebook or their website or wherever and watch the actual stream of the numbers being picked. So chances are in a second I'll skip forward roughly an hour, as you can see, and we'll watch their live stream. I'll try and record it as well. And as I said, of course I'm not going to win. That's another kind of bonus point. Go into it expecting to lose, and that in conjunction with the other bits of advice that I would give, I think allow it to remain fun and reduce your disappointment. But at the same time, a piece of advice that I've given people in the past, even about my own raffles, is that you stand a 100% chance of losing any raffle that you don't enter. So by entering that one ticket, like I said about, you've immediately increased your odds, but keeping a control over that kind of thing, not losing too much money, because then you get into like the gambling addiction kind of level. Whereas if you're literally risking, 99p, or in the case of this one, £4, potentially on a series which I may never do again, but we'll see, then that keeps it under control. Plus, if you think about it, what would you spend the pound on? What would you spend the £4 on? Maybe a drink, a sandwich? It's not that much of a risk, which is one of the reasons why I try to make my raffles, like for the PS5, I think it was £2 for a ticket. I try to keep it as low as possible, because not only does it allow more people to enter, but it means that those who do take the risk of trying to win, they don't have to pony up a huge amount of cash, which is another reason why I personally don't like some of these raffles that I've seen popping up more and more, where they're really low odds to tempt people, which is not necessarily a bad thing, having only like 1,000 or 2,000 people. But when the ticket is, I've seen some tickets that were like £85 a ticket, and to be fair, it was like for a Porsche GT3 RS, but even then, that is a lot of money to risk on something that, again, you're probably going to lose. Even something like £30 a ticket, that's a lot. The most expensive ticket I've bought was for the Ferrari. I think it was like a tenner, and I would never usually risk that for one vehicle. So for me, I would say, if you are going to do this as well, try and keep a budget for it, and don't go over the budget, even if it's like a monthly budget. If it's something that you want to try, either to keep the vehicle or to keep the cash, make sure that you have a game plan to keep under control. So at this point, I'll probably do a jump cut to after I've purchased the ticket. In fact, I'll show you some of the process here. So there are 86% sold. If I reload the page, there are now 1,100 remaining, just under 1,200 tickets. So I'm going to enter, and then you choose your tickets. Obviously it's 1. And what is the capital of England? So here's the easy questions that I said about. So obviously London. Add to basket. And here's another bit of advice. Always double check your answer. So for example, in school, back when you were doing quizzes and stuff, you could easily just pick the wrong one because you go, oh yeah, I know that, and then get like a silly mistake. So is it Birmingham? It's my home city, but no. Is it Edinburgh? No, of course that's Scotland. It's got to be London. So that could be such an annoying thing if you make a simple mistake like that. So I'm going to add that to the basket. I don't have an account with these guys either, so I'll probably have to create one. So I don't have an account. Like I said, I'll have to create one now, and I will skip forward to when I've done that. So to jump forward in time, I've created an account with them and I've placed my order. As you can see here, I bought the one ticket. My numbers are on screen. Doesn't really matter if I show these numbers because obviously you're going to be seeing this after it's already ended anyway. But that is completed. My draw numbers are 8249. Not that it matters anyway, because we know I'm not going to win. But we'll see later on, obviously. And yeah, so that is done. We are doing the draw at 8:15. It is now 7:30. So about 45 minutes or so. So now with that ordered, I will hopefully jump cut forward to them doing the winner being selected. So we've now skipped forward in time. You might be able to hear them talking in the background because it's the live stream. I'll probably be showing that on screen anyway. But I'm not exactly sure when in the stream they're going to say winners. Obviously my ticket was 8249. I believe that's the ticket that they're going to be picking out. Not mine obviously, but I think it's the 4-digit one. We'll see soon enough, I guess. And yeah, I'll probably skip forward a little bit more because I want to obviously show you the whole thing. You don't want to be around for the whole thing. But yeah, this is how it works. They have a YouTube channel for it as well, doing the live giveaways, or not live giveaways, the live draws, I should say. So yeah, I think while they're doing this, I might actually drop a thing in chat.
4,304, which is Andreas Gazousis, I think. Congrats, well done. Morgan +6. Chameleon Wrap R34. Do you mean like Midnight Purple? 2. Freya's just said, I'll get Anton a KFC because I'm nice. That's in writing. I'm going to screenshot it. There it is. Got that now. Right, 1 to 1198. 11,998. This is for the RX7. Numbers are in. Yeah, please, that's the right number. Yeah. Hit it. 2,058. So 2058. James. Wow. Congrats, James. RX7 coming your way. We'll give you a call and see. Any Ford Raptors on the horizon? We just did one.
So, like I said, we already knew. If I mute this for a second, we already knew, obviously, that it wasn't going to win. As I said, watch it anyway to get the part of the live stream where the winner was announced, and that's pretty much how most of these work anyway. Some of them have, like, you know, the set of various balls and get the number out of them. Some of them do a random number generator like this. Either way works. And like I said, didn't expect to win anyway. The majority of these that I would ever enter, I probably wouldn't win, which is why I said, is there something you'd like to see more of? Because statistically speaking, if you enter one here and there, then eventually your chances are probably reasonably good. For me, I don't know how often I would do it. That would really depend on how often you'd want to watch stuff like this. And I think for future reference, if you are considering whether or not you would want to watch stuff like this, the main difference that you would see between this and other future ones is that this video will probably be much longer than future ones would be, because I was talking about, you know, my advice for stuff like entering and that kind of stuff. But aside from that, so for example, all of you who just watched this, you didn't risk £4 of your own money, so you watched me spend it, no risk to you. So if you would be interested to see it again, then let me know in the comments. But that's it for this pilot, I guess you could say, and maybe I'll see you next time with more. But for now, thanks for watching.